Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to the John Gaunt podcast, broadcast, whatever you want to call it. If you're wondering what that is behind me, it's not me. I'm not on fire, but Nigel Farage is. Look, there he is, looking over us. Nigel Farage as Nero. Why have I got him as Nero as my backdrop today? Well, I think he's fiddling, and so is Rupert Lowe, whilst Britain or Rome burns. Do you get it? Good. Right, I put up a poll as well, asking who are you backing in this silly spat of theirs. And you never guess who's won or who's winning at the moment. It's neither. So I said, are you backing Farage? Are you backing Rupert Lowe? On my Facebook poll, and you can check it out yourself if you want, 20% are backing Farage, 20% for Rupert Lowe, and then the majority basically saying neither. Get over it. Same on Twitter. The percentages aren't quite the same, but how interesting is that? And I think it proves what I'm saying. Whilst they're fighting in this stupid fight, Britain is burning. This is the best chance they've ever had of getting momentum, of them actually becoming something. Yes, but what's happened? They're fighting amongst themselves again. Why doesn't Nigel Farage learn? Look what he did when he was in the Brexit party. He suddenly said to Boris Johnson, okay, we won't put up any candidates. And he thought he was going to get a deal. They did the proverbial on him from a great, great height. He doesn't learn. It seems as if he almost gets his hands on the FA Cup or the World Cup, and then he trips over the last step. Now, I'm not saying that I'm in favour of Rupert Lowe. Who is he? He's got the charisma of my desk. He's almost got less charisma than Richard Tice. There can only be one leader of reform if it's going to continue, in my opinion, and that is Nigel. But of course, Rupert has now called him the Messiah. I've got him as the Emperor, as Rome burns, but Rupert calls him the Messiah, and he's not being nice. He's taking the proverbial. But then it's not particularly pleasant what Nigel has been saying about him. And they're certainly trying to push him out, him and the chairman. Why? Why does Farage always do this? I mean, I know him quite well. I certainly know him from a long time ago, going to UKIP events. He is very much his way or the highway. But then again, you can't really criticise him. He's the only politician in Britain who achieved what he set out to do when he started in politics. And he hasn't changed. He's always been an egomaniac. He's always been on a mission. But that's the drive. That's what makes him so different to other politicians. But now, as they argue amongst themselves, it's got me thinking, are reform just the same as any other political party? Will they turn into pigs with their snouts in the trough? Why on earth are they allowing this to happen? Or is it some kind of plot within the establishment to make sure there's never a credible alternative to Labour and the Conservatives? I've just been looking at a latest poll. It's only one poll, but Starmer has got a bounce. They're saying it's from the stuff he's been doing abroad. Let's face it, he's been abroad all the time, hasn't he? He's now the most favoured leader. It's only one poll in Britain. Farage was hammering him. Kemi Badenoch has gone up in the polls. Why? Because of these two, and they are children, arguing in this very public way. Why couldn't they just sort it out? Why didn't they sort it out how the Brexit, I don't know if it was the Brexit Party or UKIP. Do you remember Stephen Wolfe, another friend of mine? And also, indeed, the guy he had the fight with, what was his name? I can't remember his name now. Mike Hookham, right Hookham. They had a scrap in the Strasbourg Parliament. Wolfe got laid out, allegedly, by Mike Hookham. But at least they got it over and done with. But this row, where they're both fighting each other, I just find it ludicrous, childish, and right at the point at where they could have got some real political power and not just being a protest group, they're doing this. I think it's a complete and utter joke. What do you think? Comments are coming in already. That's brilliant to hear. And I'll come to those in a moment. But let's first of all talk about Farage. See, lots of people think he is the Messiah, don't they? A lot of people who believe in getting Britain back and being a proper sovereign state still see Nigel as the Messiah. But in my polls today, he's obviously slipping. People like Rupert Lowe, because he's into mass deportations, people are saying, well, he's the man for us. Well, he won't get elected. I mean, I do agree with Nigel about this. He won't get elected with that in his manifesto. He won't. Because even though you might think, or even I might think, look, there's a need to deport. I certainly think we need to deport all the criminals, foreign criminals. But where do you start with mass deportation? Where do you finish? And how would that get you the popular vote? I'm not sure it would. Well, I don't think it would, actually, because it isn't just people who are involved or interested in Europe or Brexit or reform that make the decisions. It's Middle England as well. And I'm not sure they'll go for that. Let's see. Do you believe that reform can sort this out? Should he have nipped it in the bud earlier? And there's another factor here. It's not about Rupert Lowe. It's and I'm brave enough to talk about it. It's the Tommy Robinson factor. Tommy has portrayed himself as a martyr. Let's be honest. He is in prison, and why he's in prison is contempt of court. He was told not to show the film. He continued, right? He isn't a political prisoner in the sense of they've just taken him off the street. And don't start now commenting and giving me a lecture about Tommy Robinson. I've known Tommy Robinson since his Luton days because I was on the radio in Luton when he first came to prominence. And a lot of what he says, I've got a lot of time for. But he's not a political prisoner, right? And if Tommy Robinson was in a party, which is why Nigel doesn't want him in his party, I think that would lose votes rather than gain them votes. It would gain them some people, but not the mass that you need if you want to be a mainstream party. Now, you may take the view, well, we don't need to be a mainstream party. What we need to be is a protest party. That's a valid point of view. But there's that factor as well. And Rupert Lowe is definitely playing on that. I can't tell you whether Rupert Lowe would be a good leader. I've not really seen him speak that much. I've seen what he's written on Facebook, and it's pretty Route 1 football style, isn't it? Yeah, it's everybody's fault apart from us working class Brits. So I'm not sure he is the man. Whereas Farage is a strategic thinker. However, I think he is wrong to allow this to develop. I think he was wrong when he booted Ben Habib out in the way he did. I think he was wrong the way he seized power off Tice, although Tice, as I say, charisma of a table. The only person who can be the leader is Nigel. But he doesn't have to be like some Roman god or Roman emperor killing people or putting them off or chucking them out if they dare to challenge him. A really good leader, as in business, surrounds themselves with great, talented people. People who will say, no, you're wrong. You're totally wrong. And have the row with you. And that's how you build. I mean, I know this from bitter experience myself. When I first had my nightclub, I had an accountant guy and he told me one thing and I said, no, I don't want to do this. I want to do that. He said, well, and there's a bit of a ding dong. And then he said, so I said, I'm doing it. And he said, why? And I said, because I'm the boss. And he just sat back in his chair and he went, oh, you're the boss. And you know what? He was right. I was wrong. I was pig-headed. I didn't listen to somebody who knew a lot more about the nuts and bolts of business, knew nothing about the business we're in, but knew how to make a strategic decision. So what I want to know is, where are you? If you voted today, who would you vote for, Farage or Lowe? And is it just the thing that Lowe is talking about, the unspeakable, deporting people? Is that what is appealing to you? You're perfectly entitled to have that opinion. I think you need a little bit more than that to get elected. But the thing I do know is, whilst reform, led by Nigel Farage, are fiddling, this country is burning. There's a desperate need for political change. And what they're doing now is not only handing an own goal or a free shot. They're actually giving them the game. They're giving the tournament back to the mainstream press, who are loving this, of course, and all the lefties and all the MSM and all the rest of it, and the established parties. And then again, it also makes you think, well, if Reform got into power, would they be a letdown? Would they simply be the same as what we've already got? I'm coming to your views in a moment. And what is the role of the chairman in all this? And where's he come from? And who the hell is he? And I'll tell you who the other spectre at the feast is. It's Elon Musk. Elon Musk talked about giving £100 million to Reform. Then he changed that, and then he said Farage wasn't the best person to be the leader. Do you remember this a few weeks ago? There's now rumours that Elon Musk will fund a new right-of-centre party led by people like Ben Habib and indeed Rupert Lowe. Let me tell you, they'll go nowhere, no matter how much money Musk puts in. Because Musk might have put a lot of money into Trump, but what's Trump got? He's got the X factor. He's got the charisma. He's a leader, just like Nigel Farage. And so I would say be very careful before you side with Rupert Lowe, Elon Musk, or the rest of them against Nigel. That's not saying that Nigel has not got to change. He clearly has. At the moment, they're giving the game, they're giving the World Cup, and our country, effectively, our sovereignty, our country, they're giving it back to the MSM, the lefties, the useless, failed Conservative Party. And for this first poll today kind of proves it. Why didn't they discuss this and sort this out in private? That's really what I'm saying to you. So I'm asking the question, and we're coming to you now. Are Reform finished? And who are you with? And give me the reasons, and let's discuss it. Is it Farage or Lowe? What do you think about Elon Musk being a big influence behind this? His money. Are you comfortable with that? Tommy Robinson, let's put that into play as well, please. Pip Tomlinson, here we go. We're going for your views now. My opinion on Nigel Farage has changed a lot, John. He's just a front man, but with little substance. He hardly ever works in Clacton and seems to be more about his image these days. Someone else should lead. Well, the Clacton story, I'm not sure that's true. That's what the mainstream press is saying about him, but, you know, you're entitled to your opinion. On YouTube, Newsview OK says, hi, Gaunty, it's Pete. Pete who? I don't know who you are, mate. Ashley Moore, since Farage got into power, it's been a disaster in Parliament. Got in power? He's not in power. You mean leading? What's been a disaster in Parliament? Don't quite understand that, Ashley, but tell me. Oh, John, you are so sad, says Carl Bernard on Facebook. I don't even understand your comment, but, you know, thanks for making it. Ronnie Hurst, I think Reform will sort themselves out. Well, that's what I'm hoping. They should stop being little boys, bang their heads together and get a solution. There must be a solution. I'd vote for Rupert. He's saying the right noises about deportations, like saying something, says Newsviews OK. Yes, I accept that point. But if you were the party who said we're going to deport, say, all Muslims, because that's basically what you're trying to get at, I don't think that would get mainstream support. I really don't. I don't think there's enough people who think that way. I also don't think I think it's a wrong-headed policy. There's lots of Muslims who are contributing and doing well, which is what Farage spoke about a few months ago, and he got slated for it. You've got to be sensible. Not all Muslims are terrorists. Ajit Chambers, hi all. He says, hi, London Ghost Tube Station Tourist Attractions founder. What are you trying to say? Ajit, this is not a publicity program for you, pal. Make a decent point, right? Otherwise, clear off. Don't use me and my popularity to push your whatever it is. Hi, John. This is Carl Eves on YouTube. I'm utterly depressed with this spat. Well, I think I am as well, Carl. I started to have some hope with Reform. They should have sorted this out in private. They're both to blame. Big-headed Nigel has gone down, in my view. I think that's a fair point, Carl. I've been very close to him, very around him at, very important points in his career. I even was a bit of a warm-up man. There was talk about me going on tour with him a few years ago, but then I was a bit too funny, I think. I work with people like this in telly. There are some people in telly. Eamon Holmes is a great example. He doesn't mind if you're funny when you're on with him. And somebody else who people slag off, or Richard Madeley, he doesn't care whether you get the laugh when you're having a discussion about something or he does. Whereas there's a certain famous ex-gardener halfway up Prince Charles's backside, Alan Titchmarsh, who I used to do shows with, he hated it if I got more laughs off the audience or a bigger response. Well, I did, because I'm a better performer than him at comedy, at that. That's just the way it is. But he couldn't see. It was his name on the can, so it doesn't really matter. That fat bloke was funny on Alan Titchmarsh. They're not going to say John Gaunt, are they? But it's ego. And this is what is driving this. There's a big ego thing in this. And I think Rupert Lowe's got a big ego as well, like any ex-chairman of a professional football club must have. By the way, if you're enjoying what I'm doing, please press the like button, the like and the share button. If you're listening to the podcast, the audio version of this show, please, next time, have a go, or even when we're not live, because you can watch it on replay, watch the TV version. You'll find it on John Gaunt TV on YouTube. You'll also find it on Facebook and Twitter, but it's probably best on YouTube. And if you like what I say, or even if you don't like it, if you like the fact that I'm willing to talk about it in a non-partisan way, like what I'm trying to do here, Nigel Farage looking down at me, which is what I'm trying to do here now, you won't have heard this discussion on any of the show. If you can support me, that would really help. Several ways to do that. You could buy me a coffee. That's www.buymeacoffee.com/John Gaunt. All the things are in my socials if you want to find the link. Or you can also join my YouTube channel. And for 99p, you can become a fan. $2.99, you become a super fan. Why don't you try that as well? All these little pennies all help for me to continue doing my show. Nigel Britton, the majority of the Reform Party are so-called boomer generation. This is our last chance to sort this country out. Yeah, boomers, 64 is the cut-off age, isn't it? 1964. If not a reform government in 2029, then 2034, majority well into their 70s, including Habib and Rupert Lowe. So it's their last chance, their last time. This handbag at dawn's party have Habib, Lowe, and their president de facto, Tommy Robinson, go their own way. And let's see where Middle England votes then. Farage has 30 years of experience. Thank you, Nigel. Written in sort of note form, but I understand where you're coming from. And I think it's quite a good summary of where we're at. I really do. And I think when people turn on Farage, you've got to remember he's a man who's dedicated all his life to getting us our country back. It hasn't worked, not because of him, but because of Theresa May and Boris Johnson, who sold us out. You could argue if Nigel hadn't stood all those people down, maybe the whole political climate would be different. That's true, but we don't know that for sure. And I do wonder whether he's making the same mistake again. And Ben Habib, I don't really like some of the things he says, but sometimes I think, yeah, you're on the money. And I've heard that Lowe guy, Rupert Lowe, a couple of times, but certainly he's been positioning himself for this coup. And so Nigel, as the emperor, there he is, as the emperor himself is, he ain't going to allow it. I think he should have allowed him a bit more, myself. Mary B14, I would vote for Rupert. Thank you for your honesty on YouTube. Martin, Nigel Farage, this is on X. Nigel Farage is concentrating too much on just being just right of centre. No reform isn't finished, but the infighting must stop. Fair point. That was on X. Newsview UK, unless Farage can get a grip on this, then reform is finished. Tommy never wanted to be in reform. He knows he's too, it says decisive. It is decisive, not divisive. I understand. I don't know. He would. But anyway, there we are. But he's in prison, so it's an irrelevance. And he's going to be in prison for another year or so, isn't he? Hey, by the way, I'm not saying that he should be in prison, because I think the sentence was too tough. But he's not in prison as a political prisoner, which is the garbage a lot on the right come out with. And I'd say that to his face. I'd say it to his face. He was led astray by that bloke at Rebel News, the Canadian, the fat guy. I met him years ago. Tommy came to my studios in London. I said, Tommy, you've got to be careful what you're doing here. Think of the bigger picture. Maybe he will become Prime Minister one day. I shouldn't think so. Deport anyone that's not here legally is what's to be said. I'm not pigeonholing Muslims. No. Okay. And that's News Views UK guy. And now I understand why he said what his name was. Well, why don't you check? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Fair enough, mate. Fair enough. But when people talk about mass deportation, they're basically talking about Muslims. And I think that's dangerous talk. If you don't like me because I'm saying that, that's fine. I think it's dangerous. I think people who are foreigners who commit crimes here, and there's 13,000 of them in our prisons, we should, of course, deport them. People who preach hatred on our streets, we should deport them. We shouldn't allow somebody into our country who wants to kill all Jews. Of course we shouldn't. I'm with you on all of that. But the idea of mass deportation is just nonsense. What? So my mates who run a great curry house, you want to deport them on the grounds that they is Muslim? No, it's just nonsense. My doctor, no. Anyway, Chopper, got to stick with them. No other realistic choice, and abstaining just plays into Labour's hands. Fair point. But what is Reform's manifesto going to say now? They're clearly split. Mark Winter says, Tommy Robinson, this is on Facebook, is absolutely is a political prisoner. Yes, he was guilty of contempt of court. Yeah, that means he's a criminal. But it was a civil offence, not criminal. When jailed, brackets, unfairly, he should have been placed in an open prison. No, let's look at that. The reason he's in Wood Hill and the reason why he was in a maximum security prison and the reason why he was in solitary confinement was for his own safety. Because last time he kept getting a kick in, didn't he? And I think he actually asked for it himself. Don't be played by Tommy. He's a very clever guy. And I don't think the sentence is right either. He obviously didn't listen to what I said. But this idea that he's the Messiah is nonsense. He was right when he talked about the rape gangs. I agree with him. He was the voice in the wilderness. But let's not make him the Messiah. We've already made that mistake with the geezer behind me. Look, there he is. Anyway, let's move on. I have a question, John Gorn. Do you? Well, say your question then rather than waste it. Sorry, John, I keep missing you. Farage should stay, says Chris Ashmore, my old mate in Coventry. Hello, Chris. I keep changing the time. I'm going to settle to the time probably next week. And it's probably going to be 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock at night. I'm not quite sure. Ajit Chambers now says, hey, no worries. You're busy. All the best. Well, of course, I'm bloody busy. I'm too busy to promote whatever event you're trying to get me to promote. And I think it's rude to try and take over the discussion in the way you did. That's all I'm saying. I'm doing this off my own back and with the support of people who buy me a coffee. We're not here as a publicity centre for you. That's called mainstream radio. Off your torrel. Go and do something on Talk Sport. Grant French. Now, Grant does know what he's talking about because he's part of the Brexit movement. Nigel has form in this book. Look how he buried Godfrey Bloom. Yeah, I know Godfrey as well. Nigel will always be a party's greatest asset and at the same time, the greatest liability. Like many leaders, Grant. I was in UKIP for a decade. Yeah, I know. And some of the people he brought in were a disaster. Usually because they nursed his ego. That said, now we have to stick with Reform. I think that's where I'd come out in the end. I mean, I have not pledged my allegiance to Reform anyway. But I certainly think now we've got to keep an eye on them. Because it does concern me that they've had this spat in public. It does concern me that it seems to be about ego, whether it's this man here, Nigel, or whether it's Rupert and the rest of them in the background. You seem to have forgotten why we voted to get you into Parliament, why we voted for Brexit. It wasn't because you were brilliant politicians, although I think Nigel is a brilliant politician. It was because you were going to deliver what you said on the can. And you did. And Nigel Farage did. And that's why I won't have people slagging him. And I would certainly warn anyone who is a Reform voter. And I couldn't believe that poll. I know it's only a snapshot. I'll have a look and see where it's at the moment. It's only a snapshot, but it was phenomenal. I couldn't believe that's what people were thinking. I really couldn't believe it. I'm just trying to find it now. I just could not believe there was that many people who were anti-Nigel. And no one's really spoken today yet. We're going to finish soon. So if you want to get a comment in, do it now. I'd like to find out what you think about the new chairman. Is he behind all this? Or is that just me looking for a scapegoat as well? Reform have got a really difficult problem. And getting 5 MPs was a remarkable achievement. And the amount of media coverage they've got. But now all that's happening is it's allowing everybody on X in particular to slate them. I just read a really snooty review about the spat by that stupid woman in The Guardian. And I've seen the BBC are doing it as well. So they've damaged themselves with this. So the sooner they either make up or boot him out. And especially, have you noticed, I haven't actually said what the arguments are. I don't know whether Nigel Farage is telling the truth or Rupert Lowe is. And you know what? I don't really care. I don't want this childish spat. Look and see. Rupert Lowe has obviously got a lot of professional business experience, just like Richard Tice. So you bring that into the fold, and a leader sits back and allows people to have their say, but then makes the final decision. Has Farage overstepped the mark? See, Mary B14, you're another one. I don't really like you doing what you're doing. Free Tommy Robinson immediately. Well, I hope that gave you a little tingle in your panties, but it actually doesn't achieve anything, does it? It doesn't achieve anything. It's off the agenda. And I just find it childish. Nope, they could be white, Greek Orthodox for all I care, but if here illegally, they must go. Well, no one's arguing that. I don't see colour. I just see legal or illegal immigration. Well, everybody who turns up is illegal without going through the proper process. But you know what it means when people say mass deportation. Don't take me for a mug. I'm a normal bloke. I know what it means. It's shorthand for mainly Muslims, because a lot of people believe, and they are wrong, that somehow all Muslims are the problem, which is clearly ridiculous. So I don't like that idea. What I would do is want to secure our borders. Like I said yesterday, we need to get rid of Yvette Cooper. She's useless. She's about as much use as a chocolate fireguard being in charge of borders. Of course, we've got to stop people coming in. And then we've also got to deal humanely with people. That's nothing wrong with that. That's not being soft. That's being logical and being a human being. I think a lot of people don't know that all the religions are the same, all come from the same God. Thank you. They're Abrahamic 5, variations on a theme. Thanks for the time update. That's Chris. He knows what he's talking about. You're right, Chris. It's all BS. I don't follow any religion. I don't believe in any religion. If you want to be religious, I'll respect that's your choice, and I'm not going to slag you off, but I have an absolute right to say your religion is nonsense. Your belief system is nonsense. Just like you've got the same to say to me, and I'm going to save your soul, Gaunty. And I'm going to take you to heaven if you read my Bible or my Quran or my whatever it is. Well, no, you're not, because I'm not going to bother reading it. I might have it as a coffee table book, you know, for when your coffee table's got a wobbly leg and put it under. But yeah, but it's just nonsense. Just absolute nonsense. So I don't know. We haven't solved this, obviously, but I just wanted to put a different view into the equation. And I don't think it is all Farage's fault. I don't think it's all Rupert Lowe's fault. I don't think Ben Habib's comes out of this with any glory either. Get together, work out what you're trying to do, and make a way forward. That's what the British people want. As I say, that poll, it's not scientific, but it kind of says the point, makes the point. What we want is change. We want political change. We want a political party who are going to represent our views, right? I want to toughen up borders. I want controlled, well-managed immigration, but I don't want to be part of something that's racist. Do you? Well, if you do, don't listen to me, please, because that's not what I'm interested in. I think it's filthy. It's an app's filthy. Kim Rye, another Brexiteer, this is a rerun of the UKIP catastrophe a decade ago. You're right, it is. But that's why they should learn. You should learn from your experience. Chopper says the only soul I'm saving is a nice lemon soul I've got for me tea. Ooh, good luck to you. Right, that's it. Thanks very much for watching. If you can watch again, I'll do another one for tomorrow, I think. If you're watching on replay or listening on the podcast, please press the like button. Please press the share button. That's the most important thing, the share button, so that more people can find out about me. I'm still getting people saying, where have you been? I've only just discovered you. Well, it's great that you have, but that means we're not telling people. I haven't got a marketing budget. I've only got the odd fiver from buymeacoffee.com or the donations, yeah? So I need people to actually promote it. That's the best thing you could do for me, if you'd fancy. But until we speak again, what's this one say? Chris says we need the Farage party. Old UKIP members joined the Tory party. Nice one, bud. Catch you soon, says News Views. Chris says night-night. Ronnie Hurst says Labour and the Conservatives don't represent our views. Yes, and that sums it up. And that's why this spat needs to be solved, because there's nobody representing the views of the vast majority of people in this country. That was the opportunity that Nigel, Rupert, and the rest of them had. Don't throw it away, you idiots. Don't throw it away and therefore throw away our country. Thanks for watching. If you've got kids, give them a kiss, give them a hug. Hey, hey, hey. Don't forget to tell them you love them. I'll see you tomorrow. All the best. Cheers.